Welcome back everyone. Hi, if you're new, I'm Tori, and today I want to revisit the last 3 years of my best books of the year and basically look at these lists through 2022 eyes and see if they'll hold up today. We're going to start with 2019, get into 2020, and then finally close out with 2021. And with my 2022 perspective, I want to see if I were to remake that same list right now, what it would look like for the year. So I do have the last 3 years of best books in front of me, and just as I'm looking at the list right now, I still love all of these books. All the ones I picked out for each year, these are still incredible reads, and I highly recommend all 30 of them. But I think it'll be a lot of fun to see how exactly my love for them has changed, whether it's gotten stronger or if there are some on the list that probably wouldn't make it on there today. And I also want to take a look at some books I read in a particular year that maybe didn't make the list but have really grown on me in some way over the last couple of years. I hope you enjoy this video. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, I still love all of these books, but I just want to see how things are different looking at it in 2022. So let's get into it. So first, let's get into 2019. 2019 was an overall really good reading year, and my best books of the year looked like this. In 10th place, I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman, which is book 1 in the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. In 9th place, I have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Number 8 is Neuromancer by William Gibson. 7 was Leviathan Wakes by James S.A. Corey. 6 was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And in the top 5, I have This Mortal Coil by Emily Suveda. Then I have The Fifth Season in the 4th spot by N.K. Jemisin. In the top 3, I had Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Exhalation by Ted Chiang at number 2. And the best book I read in 2019 was Do You Dream of Terror 2 by Temi O. I'm going to keep the list right here on the side so you guys can follow along with me. Just looking at this list with 2022 eyes, there are a few things, actually more than a few things, that are quite different. So looking at this list now, I for sure am going to keep Do You Dream of Terror 2 at number 1 and Exhalation by Ted Chiang at number 2. Back in 2019 when I made this list, I thought Do You Dream of Terror, I still think this, but Do You Dream of Terror 2 was just amazing. It blew everything else out of the water that year for me, and I put it in the number 1 spot, and I still love Do You Dream of Terror 2. I think over time, my love for Exhalation by Ted Chiang has really grown, and now it kind of matches my love for Do You Dream of Terror 2. So I would kind of put them on the same level for me in 2022, even though back then I loved Do You Dream of Terror 2 a lot more than Exhalation. But right now, I feel like I love them both a little more equally, but I still wouldn't change the top 2. I'll keep Do You Dream of Terror 2 at number 1 and Exhalation at number 2. The rest of this list, we got some work to do. So if I were to reorder this list in 2022, I would keep Do You Dream of Terror 2 at number 1, like I said, Exhalation at number 2, but I'm gonna bump up The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin into the number 3 spot. As far as Daisy Jones and the Six goes, I think this one is going to be the one to take the biggest hit out of the entire list. I still love Daisy Jones and the Six. I still remember so many really great memorable scenes from that book. I completely fell in love with Daisy Jones. That being said though, in comparison to the other things on this list and how I feel about the other things on this list today, unfortunately Daisy Jones doesn't hold up as well as I thought it would in 2022. So I'm going to put Daisy Jones all the way down at number 9. From number 3 to number 9 is that's a pretty sizable jump. In the 4th spot now, I'm going to put Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I think a lot of you know this now. I have really grown to love Ninth House over the years. It is one of my favorite books. So I'm going to bump that up into the top 5 now, and I'm going to put that right behind The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Ninth House is incredible, and looking back on this in 2022, it was a crime, I think, to have it at number 9. So we're gonna remedy that and put it in the top 5. And then in the 5th spot, I'm going to bump up Leviathan Wakes from number 7 to in the top 5. Reading Leviathan Wakes back in 2019 was one of the best reading experiences. I'm still slowly making my way through the Expanse series, but this is becoming one of my all-time favorite SF series. And just looking back on my love for Leviathan Wakes and how that started my love for the Expanse as a whole, I think it deserves to be higher up. And I just have a much deeper love and appreciation for that book now than I think I did putting it at number 7 back in 2019. And then at number 6, I'm gonna put This Mortal Coil by Emily Suveda. So this is gonna be bumped down from the top 5. I really loved This Mortal Coil. It was one of the best, again, it's one of the best books I read in 2019. I think the book was just what I needed at the time. It was just so fun and action-packed, and the science was actually pretty complex as the book started going on, so I really enjoyed the first book. I think though what is kind of ruining not ruining, but I think what's kind of making me look at this Mortal Coil a little bit differently is the fact that I did finish the rest of the trilogy and the series just went downhill for me. Like book 2 was not a fan of, and then the way the trilogy ended, I just didn't enjoy it at all. I think the way that I feel about the remainder of the trilogy is starting to overshadow the things that I loved about the first book. So it's just bumping down a little bit, but it's moving down nonetheless. And then now in the 7th spot, I'm going to bump up Scythe by Neil Shusterman from number 10. I love the Arc of a Scythe trilogy. It is one of my favorite young adult dystopian sci-fi series out there. I think Scythe was a great start to the trilogy. Thunderhead was incredible, and I enjoyed the way the Toll ended overall. So this is just a really strong trilogy, and I think the first book, Scythe, just set everything up perfectly. And this is a series that I just continue to love as time passes. So we're gonna bump up Scythe a little bit. In the bottom 3, I'm gonna keep Neuromancer where it is at number 8. Number 9, Daisy Jones in the 6th. And then in the 10th spot, I'm gonna bump down to Android's Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. I still love this book, but again, in comparison to the other things on this list, we gotta shift some things around. So this is what my 2019 best books list would look like if I were making it in 2022. I went back and I looked at all the books I read in 2019 that did not make this list, and 3 of them stood out to me as books that I liked at the time but didn't love, but now that, you know, especially 2019, all this time has passed, these books have grown on me and actually have become some of my favorite SFF books. And those books are Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine, and Trail of Lightning by Rebecca Roanhorse. So if I were making my best books of 2019 video right now, this is what it would officially look like. We would have Terra 2 at number 1, Exhalation at number 2, The Fifth Season at number 3, 4 would be Ninth House, 5 would be Leviathan Wakes, 6 I would slot in A Memory Called Empire, 7 would be Scythe, 8 would be Dark Matter, 9 Trail of Lightning, and the 10th best book of the year would be this Mortal Coil. Now let's get into 2020. 2020 was one of the best reading years that I've ever had, or at least that I can remember, and it's certainly the best reading year I've ever had since being on BookTube and making bookish content. I read a little over 70 books in 2020, and I either liked or just loved the majority of them. And when we finally got into the end of the year and I started thinking about like what the best books of the year would look like and how I would rank them, it was a bit of a challenge. It was so much fun. That was probably the hardest year I've had, trying to pull out the best 10 and film that video, because I loved so many books that year. And if some of you guys are new here and are just like, why do you only do a top 10? I just like it. I don't know, but I love a good top 10. It's like, yes, I read all these books, but here are the best. I do that every single year. So it's always fun to do a top 10 for me. And so that's why I've been sticking to it all these years. At 2020, best of the year was a very hard list to make, and you're about to see why. At number 10, I had The Passage by Justin Cronin. At number 9, I had The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. Number 8 was The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. 7 was To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. 6 was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. 5 was The Traitor Baru Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. 4 was Jade City by Fonda Lee. 3 was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. 2 was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And the best book that I read in 2020 was The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. If I were to reorder this list right now, The Poppy War would stay where it is at number 1. I would swap Jade City and Addie LaRue around, put Jade City at number 2, Addie at 4. Parable of the Sower would stay where it is at number 3, and Baru Cormorant would stay where she is at number 5. For the bottom of the list, this is where things would get a little bit tricky. The City of Brass I would move up to number 8. Passage by Justin Cronin would move up to number 9. And in 2022, I would actually put The City We Became in the 10th spot. That's still a great list to me. All of these books are incredible. Like, I just remember this was such a fun video to film. I just wanted to gush about every single one of these books. I love all of them. So as far as any new additions to the list go, there are 4 books that I read in 2020 that did not make this list, but have now really stayed with me. And 2 of them have become 2 of my all-time favorites, not just SFF favorites, but 2 of my all-time favorites. The first 2 are Planetfall by Emma Newman and The Light Brigade by Cameron Hurley, books I read that have really grown on me that I really love now in 2022. And the 2 that have become all-time favorites, we have The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey and Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is so hard. I love The City We Became and I love The Passengers, but I think in 2022, because The Girl with All the Gifts and Annihilation would be added to the list in 2022, that's hard. That's really hard, but I would pull City We Became and The Passage off the list. Oh, that was really hard. As far as Planetfall and The Light Brigade, I love both of those. I think Planetfall is the one that probably snuck up on me the most. I remember when I finished Planetfall, I was like, that was good. I talked about it in a wrap-up. I said, yeah, this is good. Like, I recommend it. And then I don't know what happened, but the months started going by. I'm still thinking about Planetfall, and all of a sudden I'm just like, Planetfall was incredible. I need to tell everybody about this book. Like, people should go read this. And that's kind of my feeling about Planetfall right now. Like, it's so good, and I cannot wait to finish out the rest of the series. So I love Planetfall and I love The Light Brigade, but of the books that are left on this 2020 list, like, I don't think I love it more than The City of Brass and To Be Taught If Fortunate just yet. So I would keep those two on the list safe and sound. So if I were to remake the 2020 list now with new additions to it, we would have The Poppy War at number 1, Jade City at 2, Annihilation would be the new addition at 3, The Girl with All the Gifts would be the other new addition at 4, and then the rest of the list would continue on from there. Parable of the Sower, Addie LaRue, The Trade of Baru Cormorant, House of Earth and Blood, To Be Taught If Fortunate, and The City of Brass would be in the 10th spot. And finally, let's get into 2021. Aside from the 10 best books that I pulled out for 2021 last year, 2021 was one of the worst reading years that I can recall. And I don't say that as being like over dramatic. I don't say that as being funny. It truly was one of the worst reading years I've ever had. I read 56 books last year, and I'm not talking about the quantity. I don't care about that. I read 56 books last year, and I either strongly disliked or was completely indifferent to almost half of them. That was a pretty terrible reading year. I don't know how else to explain that. It was a pretty terrible reading year. I don't use the word hate at all. I definitely don't use it on BookTube, especially not to describe books or how I felt about them. But last year, I'm gonna be kind of rude for a second. Last year, I read some books that I absolutely hated. So I would go from books like that, books that I just, the books that I hated, to books that I just thought were okay. Books that I thought were so okay that I didn't even really want to get on camera because I didn't know what to say about them. So that was 2021 in a nutshell. And just unfortunately, that carried throughout the entire year. Books I'm reading that I just completely do not like, to books that were okay, but at the end of the day, I couldn't care less about them. The whole year was like that. But then there would be like these little pockets throughout all of that stretch of boredom and frustration. There were these little pockets where I'm reading these incredible things. You have this long year of just blah, and then boom, I'm reading Ring Shout. And then like right here in the middle, it's like boom, Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. And then little further on down the line, it's like, oh, Jade Legacy. So I mean, I wish I could say that, you know, of the 56 books I read last year, like it was just such a challenge to pull out the best of the year. And it wasn't. It took like 10 seconds. It was the quickest I had ever spent pulling out the best of the year. Ranking them was a little bit of a challenge once I had the top 10, but the top 10 itself was not difficult to pull together. These books were not great because the reading year was so bad. They were great in spite of that. And so this is what the top 10 list looked like in 2021. At number 10, I had My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. Number 9, I had Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. And number 8 was In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Number 7 was Legend Born by Tracy Dion. 6 was Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe. And then in the top 5, I had Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. Number 4 was Middle Game by Shauna McGuire. 3 was My Soul to Keep by Tanana Reeve Dew. 2 was Ring Shout by PJ Lee Clark. And the best book I read last year, hands down, was Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. And to be completely real with you, the only thing I would change is I would flip Golden Sun and Middle Game around. And that's it. So that is it for me, you guys. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Let me know down below what you thought of it, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.